You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGackie, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers.
Hey, what is going on? Thank you very much for clicking that button and putting this in your ears. Thank you very much for spending time with me today. I really do appreciate it. This is a really good episode. I think you're going to enjoy it very much. I really enjoyed my chat with Laura, and she has a unique perspective on this weird beast that we call the music industry. So it was really cool to get her insight into lots of different things and learn more about her story. I don't have too much house cleaning to do today, but I would like to take this moment to remind everybody about the affiliate links associated with this show, specifically tonemob.com/sweetwater and tonemob.com/reverb. If you are planning on buying anything that Sweetwater carries, that link will shave off a little bit and come back to help me keep this thing going. And considering I'm about to embark on the replacement of my roof, that would be much appreciated if you were eyeing any pedals or recording gear or anything else. tonemob.com/sweetwater or tonemob.com/reverb will help me out every time you decide to make a purchase through there. And it doesn't cost you anything extra. Thank you very much, should you decide to do that, and thank you very much to all who have already done that. I really do appreciate it. All right, thank you for sitting through that. Let's get right into the conversation with Laura. Let's do it. Boom. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today I have Laura Whitmore from, well, lots of things. So welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you, too. We're just diving right in. We're doing the thing. So it should be fun.
Do it.
For my audience is primarily guitar players, and obviously you have some connections, some pretty strong connections to that market as well. But you also do so many things, and I'm sure have a pretty interesting backstory. So let's go in the Wayback Machine. And when did you start, getting into music? And obviously this is your whole world now. So let's take it from.
Yeah. I actually think I got into music in elementary school because I had this really cool music teacher who taught us so many interactive, cool musical things. I still remember her so clearly, and nothing else from that time in my life. But Mrs. Price, I remember her. Then I later, like any kid, I started playing the flute in band, but I later traded that for a guitar because I'm like, I can't sing and write songs with my flute. So was about 13, I picked up the guitar. I ended up going to college for music business, and I was a vocal major in the music part of it. And kind of after that, I moved right into the business side of things and worked at CBS Records for a couple of years, and then moved over to Korg USA, where I did marketing and artist relations for 20 years.
Wow.
Which seems insane. And then I left there and started my own agency a few years ago, and had been working with many, many companies, mostly in the musical instrument side of things, audio, software, musical instruments, apps. And then just 2 years ago, I stopped doing that, and I moved in-house with a company called Positive Grid, and have been doing all their global marketing, running the marketing team for them for the last 2 years. And it's been a pretty exciting ride. So that's it in a nutshell.
That is a very condensed version of a very,
very condensed.
Very cool career. It's interesting that I'm always really fascinated with the business side of the music industry, because it's a thing that people don't they don't talk about as much. It's starting to happen more and more, and I'm always trying to pry that out of people. Like, you don't just wake up one day and are successful. Well, I guess that happens like once in a blue moon, but it's very rare to just wake up and be successful in the music industry based on pure unadulterated talent. That's maybe not what everyone wants to hear, but the truth is there's a lot that goes into both like the gear side of things and the, music artist side of things. And you've had experience with both. How have you seen this change over the years, and what could newer artists take away from that and, try to apply to their own careers, whatever that may be?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like when I was first coming out of school, I didn't even think about the music like gear part of the industry. Everybody's so focused on, the record labels and all the glamorous pieces of the puzzle there. But I will say, for anything, like, this industry is so much about hustle. Like, you've got to get out there and like make yourself relevant. I really truly believe in showing up. Like, I think, you're never going to meet the right person or get the right opportunity if you're not out there in the world. And I think for the gear side of things or the business side of things, I can't say it's like any other business. There are these idiosyncrasies to the music business that are unique.
Yes.
But I do think, it's like I said, creating opportunities, getting out there, offering to help people. You got to pay your dues. I definitely paid my dues. I'm still paying my dues sometimes, But I think for the artist side of things, when I started, there was no internet. Like, I know that's probably mind blowing for a lot of people, but I really think there's a lot of democratization of the industry now. Like, you can be successful without huge resources. Yes. And you've seen people do that, I read the book that Amanda Palmer wrote, and it was so interesting how she was so linked into her fan group that it really like became a part of who she was as an artist and helped her become really successful. And boy, did that woman, and still does, like, hustle. Yes. Like, she's like touring nonstop out there in the world, making herself relevant. I think everything's hard. It's like nothing's just going to fall in your lap. And so you have to just know, like, you're going to have to keep plugging away and figure it out. And surround yourself by people who are as passionate as you are. I mean, nobody wants to drag somebody along with them. You want to be energized by those people,
And that's a really good point, the showing up part. And I think, from my perspective, I think people could view social media that way, for all of its problems. It definitely has a lot of them. One thing that it does well is it lets people connect to each other. That's really the whole point. And so, if you're afraid to put yourself out there, if you're afraid to, make content, if you're afraid to do that stuff, then it's probably not going to work out, because there's never been an easier time to get your voice heard. I know it's hard to cut through the noise, but at the same time, back in the day, if you wanted to get the same result, you had to go bang on, record exec doors and hope they would listen to you.
And I think, like, look, in the old days, like, if people didn't like you, maybe you didn't know about it, right? Because they just nobody's going to write to you and say, I didn't like your music. Here's the letter, But now people might post on socials and, like, oh, wow, like, there's not everyone's going to like what you do. Like, you just have to find that thing and, like, make it your own, whatever it is, in business and music, in life, I guess. And, like, sometimes you have to develop a little bit of a thick skin, because it's tough,
It is. But, it's hard to hear, like, that sucks. Yeah. You're a loser. It's like, oh, okay, sorry.
But I mean, you look at even like huge artists, like, that happens to them all the time too. Like, they're successful, but they still have people who are very vocal about not liking what they do,
And it's kind of funny, because when people get to a certain level, I feel like, more I don't know, regular people like ourselves have like a certain level of like, oh, it's okay if I say I don't like, insert huge artist here because they're never going to hear it. And it's like,
Yeah.
they might.
Yeah.
They might. And no matter how successful you are, it still sucks when somebody doesn't like you. So
yeah, it still sucks.
it's not want to hear.
I also feel like this is a thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. And some people innately have this quality and some have to work on it. But this idea of like being like someone who seeks, like a seeker, I call it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't know how to do something, like there's so many things in life that we don't know how to do.
Oh, yeah.
But if you have the outlook where, okay, I can go figure this out. I'm going to just ask people. Maybe somebody else I know knows how to do it, or maybe someone they know knows how to do it, or they can direct me to a blog I can read or a book or whatever. Like if you have that sort of outlook where there's always going to be things you don't know, but it's within your power to like go figure it out. I think that's really powerful because I think a lot of people give up. They're like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Oh, well, I guess I won't do it, Yeah.
No, I love that. That's a big thing for me. It's just like, you're never going to be good at everything. It's impossible. Yeah. That's why there are different jobs.
Right.
That's literally how people function. But I do agree, like you got to try, especially these days. The amount of times I've sarcastically sent my friends the "let me Google that for you" link. It's pretty high. It's like, yeah, you can figure that out. You don't have to ask that question. You can ask people that question and it will
That's hilarious because my kids will literally call me and they'll be like, hey, like, what do I do? My sink's clogged or whatever, Yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, what am I going to do? I'm just going to go on Google and like Google that. You could do that too.
Sometimes that happens with some of the companies I work with on the customer service side of things, and it makes me laugh. They're like, do you carry XYZ? And I'm like, that I guess that's on the website where I'm gonna go look and make sure that I'm telling you correctly.
Yeah,
but
it is okay. What it is.
It's okay, it's fine. That's part of the gig, right? It's
yeah
fun. Yeah.
But I also feel like there's so many great tools and gear and like online platforms that you can tap into to help you create your music, share your music, get ideas, test stuff. I was always thinking like as an artist, you don't have to come out with a whole album now. You can just do one song and like see what people think. I mean, that's super valuable. And there's a lot of people who are not too precious about that. They'll just put stuff up and be like, oh, you liked this? Great. Maybe I'll make more things like that. You didn't like this? Oh, let me think why. Like, do I care?
Right.
Maybe if I do care, then I won't do it that way again. Like, I don't know. So
yeah, one of the artists that I think, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of their material, but you can't deny the hustle and like the drive is an artist called Russ, and he did a song every day for a year.
Wow.
It's like, obviously you couldn't really do that, back in the 80s. Like that would be impossible. But now we all have, like, we could record a song on our phones that would sound cool, So I like really admire that. Like he just did a song every single day, put it out on SoundCloud, every day, just like no matter what. And I'm sure, I haven't listened to all of them. I'm sure some of them weren't very good.
I'm sure some of them weren't. Probably like 95% of them weren't. Yeah. But that 5%, there's an album, right? Like, yeah.
You only need one, really.
Well, maybe more than one, but I mean, but it's like anything. Like there's like, okay, maybe all of his music wasn't great, but he was working on his craft every day.
Getting better.
And getting better and learning new things and trying to think, how can I say this in another way? And I think that experience alone is valuable, never mind like the outcome,
That's a fantastic point. It's practice. Yeah. It's a different form of practice.
Practice.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's very public practice.
Oh, wow. That's actually scary to think about. Everybody had to listen to my actual practice. Ooh, that'd be nice.
I was just watching this video, like, we just came out with this little Spark Mini, our little mini guy. And there's this, I can't remember her name now, which is terrible of me. Sophie Burrell, I think.
Yeah.
So she posted a video of herself learning a solo using the Spark Mini. And I was like, she is really doing it. Like she wasn't afraid to suck. Like she was figuring it out. And I'm like, there's power in that, you know?
That's impressive.
If you're okay showing the world, like when you're not perfect, like people can be pretty accepting of that if they're along with you for the ride, you know?
Oh, definitely. You're just honest and like, hey, I'm figuring it out. There's some trolls, don't get me wrong, but largely people will be accepting of that and move on with their day if they're not super happy with it. It's like, I'll figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a couple things, you know, based on your history. So let's go back to the record label days.
Yeah.
And so what are some common mistakes that you see artists make? Because you've obviously seen a lot of artists come through the door. And what are some just common, probably from a business level, mistakes that you see them make, like that really impede their career or cause them problems they didn't see coming?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's sort of a double-edged sword now for artists. I think the fact that you have to be a business person too, like it's very rare that someone can just purely be an artist. And I think that there's a give and take. There's a positive and negative to that. I mean, you have more control, right? But you have to do it yourself.
Yes.
It's funny. I was talking to somebody else about this the other day where there should be, and maybe there is, maybe somebody offers this. I haven't researched it, like a baseline, like how-to guide for the business aspect of being a musician. And it probably changes every day. But just like, you know, taking it upon yourself to learn the ins and outs of like, hey, how do I deal with a contract? How do I get my stuff distributed or online, or like, you can't be passive about any of those things. And I do see like a lot of musicians, and maybe it's like, maybe that, you know, their creative brain is dominant. And so maybe their practical brain is less dominant, but you either have to take it upon yourself to learn those things or align yourself with people who like, that's their passion, you know? I always think like more people should take advantage of like students out there in the world. There's all these students want to get into the music business, want to get their feet wet. They want to work, you know, at label side of things, management. They're all looking for projects to work on and to believe in and to help and get experience with. I really think that's an untapped resource. I also feel like, you know, artists have to think about like the labels or other partners, they're businesses, you know? And so when you go in to speak to them, if you get the opportunity to speak to them, present yourself as a business. Like you're in the business of making music, and, you know, do what you say you're going to do, show up, like think about things from their perspective. Like, how am I going to add value to this business? You can think about what you need from them, but, you know, any relationship like that is a give and take. And I think, you know, the more you know and the more you can present, like, here's what I can do for you. Like, I will be there to make content for you. I have this social following. Like you know, whenever I go to a show, like it's sold out. Like all those things make a difference to these companies because they're businesses.
Yes.
And, you know, all of them love music or they wouldn't be in this business because it's a hard business. But, you know, I just think, you know, and I think about this from like the gear side of things too. Like people ask me like, oh, how do I get an endorsement or work with a gear company? And it's the same thing. It's like, how can you make it a win-win situation? Like these companies, you know, guitars, amps, whatever, like they are all looking for people to be organically like sharing what they're doing with these products. If you can show them, hey, look, like I took your little amp and I did this great video and I tagged you and like this many people liked it. And like, I'd like to do more stuff with you. Like you can prove to them that you can be valuable. And I think it's all about just having this very active attitude and not just waiting for stuff to fall into your lap. You've got to think about like, okay, how can I make myself like really valuable fit into their world, and you know, stuff kind of naturally starts to fall into place when you have that kind of outlook, you know.
That's perfect advice, because that's the number one thing I see people who are seeking endorsements make mistakes with. And I see a lot of those like come into my inbox on the Stringjoy side of things. And
Yeah.
it's always, there's this really unfortunate situation that occurs sometimes where it's like, hi, I used to be with X string company and they're out of business now. And I, played with, Jimmy B and the Destroyers in 1987. And I just always had an endorsement and I would like one from you too. And it's like, I appreciate what you've done, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to move the needle for us. It has to be a two-way street. You have to approach it with that mindset that this is a partnership, like you said. This is something that's going to be beneficial for both the artist and the company or the brand or whatever. That's the only reason these things happen. And, and it also has to be a good fit. Sometimes there's people that have great followings that just don't really line up with a brand for whatever reason. And it's no hard feelings. It's just what it is,
Yeah. I think too, like you have to be careful because, usually you'll get one shot with a relationship, right? So if you slack off, you don't follow through with what you say you're going to do, or, whatever it is, like it's pretty hard to get back in, so make sure you're ready for being able to deliver on those promises too.
That happens sometimes too. And that's always really unfortunate. You take a shot at somebody and then they don't do what they said they were going to do. And that makes you a little bit hesitant to try to take a shot with anybody else. Cause it's like, oh, I've been burned so many times.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else or that person again, like you'll probably never work with that person again because you can't rely on them, So it's tricky.
It is very tricky. Very, very tricky. So when you made the transition, this is going to be interesting for me. So when you made the transition going from Korg, where you were for a long time, and they're one of the most, successful gear companies on the planet, to going independent there for a little while, what made you make that transition?
Yeah, it was interesting. I had been at Korg for 20 years. I got a huge amount of experience there and got my MBA while I was working there as well. And I worked on Korg, Marshall, and Vox brands because they distributed everything. The company changed. Some of the personnel or the leadership changed, and it maybe just felt like the right time to do something else. And I actually was living in New York, and I moved across the country to California, and said, okay, like this is it. This is the time to try this independent thing. I had been thinking about it for a little while. Because at that point I had like really well-rounded experience. I did PR, I did artist relations, I did like graphic design and production. I was the editor of Korg's magazine. Like I knew a lot,
Nice.
20 years, right? I knew a lot.
Yeah.
Trade show planning, like everything. So I started my agency called Mad Sun Marketing. And I was very fortunate to have a client already when I left waiting for me. But I will say it was extremely nerve-wracking and lots of self-doubt. Can I do this? It was so hard to get it going. About maybe 9 months in, I was thinking, can I do this? Maybe I should just look for a job. It was 2009, maybe.
Okay.
2008, 2009, something like that. And then I got like a really fun client, like guitar amp client. And I was like, oh, like this is fun. Like I'm not making a lot of money, but it's fun at least, And it kind of just grew from there. And yeah, it was tough, but it was very fulfilling for a long time for me to run my own business. I did it for 12 years. So, it was a lot of ups and downs. I learned a lot about running a business, and the cyclical nature of the ups and downs of business too, which you know, at least I learned like when there's a downtime, it's going to go back up. Like you just have to figure out how to help it get there, you know?
Yes.
But yeah, it was just I guess, you know, just with the changes at Korg, I just felt like maybe it's time for me to move into doing something else. But I also do feel like I'm kind of one of those people who, like, once I'm in a lane, I'm like, okay, I can be in this lane for a while, you know, like I don't change my furniture around or anything. Just like, this works. Like, I'll stay here for a while.
Yeah.
You know, so
I can relate to that. Yeah. Once I get set into something, I tend to, it's not that I don't like new experiences and things, but I like my baseline to stay like, what I do.
Me too. Like, you know, I do like a lot of stuff on the side, a lot of side projects, but the baseline.
Yeah. It helps you be comfortable when you can, you know where your cups are in, in your kitchen.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when you started working with Positive Grid, like, did they headhunt you? Did they poach you, or did you see an opportunity and go for it?
Yeah, it's funny. They were actually my client. So I did marketing for them for like 2 or 3 years. And it's funny because I got introduced to them through somebody that I worked with at Korg who works there.
Oh, okay.
And they were looking for some marketing help. And I was like, hey, hello. So they invited me to come in-house at the beginning of 2020. And so I started like April 1st, 2020, right after the world kind of locked down. I think I was really fortunate because I had been working from home for years before that. So that wasn't new to me. And, you know, Positive Grid, like we had just launched Spark, our little combo amp, and it continues to be like the perfect product for at home, you know, practicing, recording, playing, jamming.
Mm-hmm.
So it's done really, really well because it's great for, you know, times when people are home more and wanting to be creative. So it worked out really well for me to go in-house with Positive Grid. And I thought I knew a lot when I started with them, but boy, do I have really dug it. I've learned so much in the last 2 years. So it's good. It's given me like a new injection of energy and insight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you seeing, from when you say that, like, are you seeing like changes in how marketing's done or how you're presenting things, or what are some of the new things you've learned?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. I think, you know, Positive Grid is primarily like a direct seller.
Mm-hmm.
So we sell on our website, through Amazon, a few retail outlets, but so a lot of the direct to consumer marketing is very data driven and, you know, focused a lot on a different kind of connection than I was used to making with customers. So I've learned so much about, you know, how to connect primarily online with people and tell stories in a different way and use digital tools and you know, just think about, you know, how we move forward and what people in the world want, expect, you know, hope for. So there's been a lot of research and just trying new things. I mean, that's another thing I love about Positive Grid is it's a very progressive company, very open to trying new things, taking some risks. You know, it's, you know, I work directly for the CEO who tells me like, yeah, that marketing idea could work, but like, let's try something we've never done before, you know? And I'm like, okay, like it challenges me to like think, well, what have I never done before that could work? Like, how do we test it and see, like, is this going to resonate and then move forward? So now my brain has this whole, like, how do we test it? Like piece that's injected into it.
I hadn't considered that because the direct to consumer world is 100% where I started. And so that's always been at the forefront of what, you know, Scott, my partner in Stringjoy, and I talk about is just like the direct to consumer. And now we're cutting our teeth into the retail more aggressively.
Yeah.
We've been in retail for a while, but it wasn't until last year when we hired our guy Chris that we really started being aggressive with retail as far as like making it a point. We're like, okay, I think we've got this direct to consumer thing. Like, it's never totally figured out because everything's always changing, as you're very aware.
Yeah.
But the more quote unquote old school way of doing music gear business, we weren't really that great at, honestly. And hiring him and bringing that in house made a big difference. And so now we're learning the whole retail landscape, and it's been like, whoa, this is different. This is and I can see how both are unique skills, and how they like the communication is just, it's much different. You have less feedback. Like with the retail channels, you don't know necessarily, you can make a change and then it's several months, if not longer.
Yeah.
Find out whether
or maybe never. Right. You might never know like what really made a difference. And I will say, like, the digital tools, like, they give you a lot of data. Like, you can see direct correlations, but they don't tell you the whole story, right?
No.
So they're still flying blind in some ways, but at least you probably have a little bit more, direct data that can help inform you. But yeah, it's tricky. It's funny. Like, I was the opposite, obviously. Like, when I started out, there was no internet, so everything was through retail channels and distribution channels. And, how do you go in and train the salespeople so they can sell your product? Like a keyboard from Korg, pretty complicated, right? So how do we help those people sell our products,
Yeah. And trying to explain it in the correct light. And then those are things you also just can't control sometimes. They might hire a new guy that didn't receive your training, and now he's like, these are made in South Africa, and it's like, no, they're not. They're made in Japan. Like, what's going on? It's so many moving parts. And then the communication, not being able to own that communication is directly makes you think about the little subtleties. Like, what did we write on the box? Like, what did because maybe the sales guy didn't say the right thing, and we got to make sure that we did our part. And it's really, it's a whole thing that I think
there are different challenges, right?
Yeah.
And I always think, like, it's funny when I, in my early career, like, our marketing decisions were like, which magazine do we go in this month? There was like Guitar Player, Guitar World, Guitar for the Practicing Musician, maybe one other bass magazine or something, and that was it. You're like, okay. Now there's so many micro decisions that you're making every day about where are you running your message, what are you paying for, what is the result of that. It's a lot more complicated.
Then you'll see your ad pop up somewhere and you'll be like, that's the wrong format because I can't read it.
Or, are they still running that ad? Why?
No, the product's changed. It's not that anymore.
It's like, oh. No, it's good. We have a great team. We're really smart people, and I'm so honored to work with them. They're just incredible. So I am not disparaging anybody's work.
No, not at all. No. Illustrating the many moving parts that.
Yes, many moving parts. Exactly. Many moving parts.
So I've had a lot of artists on that I've asked this question, and I have a feeling that you are going to be a great person to ask about this. Yeah, that's the right way to say it. Because you're coming from a different side altogether. So there's a lot of talk about, being a woman in the music industry and the unique challenges that come with that. And I think from the artist side, those are a little more obvious. But what about from your side? Because obviously there's a large, even in the demographics on my Instagram, I'm like, well, 8% late. Like, what's going on here? Like, I don't know why that is. So can you offer some perspective on your experience?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So I've been in the, I've mentioned the gear side of the industry for a really long time. Many, many times I was the only woman in the room. And, I would go to shows like AES, which were probably like 99% men. To be honest with you, I didn't really think about it too much until later in my career. I guess around 2010 or so, I started editing for Guitar World magazine, and I ended up writing a blog series for them called Guitar Girls. And I was interviewing, female guitar players, like tons of them. I probably interviewed 100, 200 female guitar players, and started to realize, like you said, a lot of their stories about how their experiences weren't great. And that led me to launch the organization that I run, the Women's International Music Network. And it was mostly because I didn't know the other women in the industry. And I felt like, we should know each other. Like, we should be helping each other. It's going to be like some solidarity going on here. Subsequently, I launched the She Rocks Awards, which honors women, both artists, women behind the scenes, gear companies, record companies, etc. But I'm bringing this all up because I see now, like, there's challenges in business. Like, there's challenges for women in every business. I actually have seen, since I've launched this organization, which has been 10 years now, that things are improving. I do see a lot more women in the musical instrument industry, although maybe not in like the highest level of leadership, but some of them are. Mm-hmm. And some of them are developing like their own companies and bringing in more women. And there's more organizations that are creating opportunities for women. I feel like it's moving forward in the right way. It's just not like, somebody asked me, I did a panel. We moderated the panel, and afterwards somebody was like, like that doesn't still happen, right? Like, it's all better now. And I literally like laughed in his face. I felt kind of bad because I'm like, no, it still happens all the time. I think now maybe like my generation was taught to kind of suck it up. But I see like my daughter's 25 and I see like women her age, like they're not going to take that. They're like, no, like you can't treat me like that. That's not okay. Mm-hmm. So I do see like that pushback, and I think that's awesome. Like if you feel like it's okay now to say no, like you shouldn't treat me that way. It helps everything evolve quicker, I think it's still challenging for women, though. I won't. And I think women, we have to think about all kinds of icky things that men never think about. Like, I'm going to work this venue at night and I'm getting out of it at 2:00 in the morning and I have to walk to my car by myself. Like, how safe do I feel? Like there are things like that cross our minds. Maybe guys think that stuff too. I don't know, but
I am a terrible person to ask that question to, because I think I'm at times, even for a guy, a bit oblivious to like, hey, that guy's eyeing you over there. I'm like, he is fair. My wife, Lynn, she was like, you don't know. She mentioned that exact thing. She's like, I got to, make sure I park in the light,
yeah.
and like have my keys in my hands. Like, I'm like, how stressful. Like, I don't think about those things. Now I do. I didn't used to, but when I was before having some of these conversations, it's just like, oh, that's horrible. Like, and I think as guys, like we get to walk around kind of blissfully ignorant to that. But these conversations are really important to bring some awareness to just simply that is the reality. It's just kind of how it is. And we need to work on changing it and being aware that women go through these things every day, where we get to just kind of go, la di da di da. I go to, like, it doesn't matter.
I think it's like anything, like women, people want to be respected, right? So if you're a female musician and you're playing in a venue and the sound guy is like, doesn't believe that you know how to like set up your gear and your sound, and then you're literally having to argue with that person, like why? Like just respect that people know what they want and what they're doing. Like there's things that happen that are really mind-boggling, especially in today's day and age. That's going to end up on the internet. Like,
Right.
no one's going to be silent about that anymore. Like, don't do that. It's just, yeah.
I've said this, when I have talked to some of these artists. I've gotten to talk to some amazing lady guitarists that they're just amazing because they're amazing guitarists. Has nothing to do with what gender they are. But
Yeah.
I've always just thought it was really funny because there's nothing inherently masculine about playing a musical instrument. It's not like you're somehow tougher or, more manly because you can play the guitar, especially if you're like a singer songwriter. You're strumming chords and singing poetry. Like, it's not that. It's like, what are we really talking about here?
Yeah.
Down to I heard somebody talking about like gangster rappers, and that's like, you're literally a poet. Like, it's it's kind of a funny juxtaposition when you really boil it down. I think it was Emily Wolf. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but
I know. I love Emily Wolf. Yeah.
So good.
She's awesome.
I was talking about that with her, and she's like, especially if you like go back to like the 80s and like all the men were playing metal and like dressed like women. Like, it was like, but
makeup, big hair.
Yeah,
right?
but it was like also one of the most, not, I wasn't there, but from my understanding, there was a lot of weird misogyny going on at that time too. But it's like, what a confusing, non-logical thing that has happened because humans are messy and weird. But I am glad to hear that even from your perspective, that things are improving. We just got to keep going in that direction.
Here's how I think about that. Like, without organizations like, the Women's International Music Network and many others, like, things would progress. They would just be slower, right? So we're just trying to accelerate the pace of change.
Yeah.
And, I think we're getting there. Could it go faster? Sure. But at least it's progress,
Yeah. And I think that's good. And I think just like getting that out there and getting that into people's brains, getting it into men's brains for like, oh, like, these are things I'd never really considered before. The sound guy thing is a perfect example. Literally every guitarist that I've talked to about this has had that same story. Yeah. Because like, oh, you're playing tonight? Let me help you set it. And I think some of it might come from a genuine place of I want to assist because my mama told me this is how you treat ladies. But some of it also is like, how about you just say, do you need a hand? And then if they don't, you just go do your thing. Like,
go do your thing. Like, so fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't treat them the same way, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I can see. I think
some of it's hard, right? Yeah. It's like ingrained in who we are, like guys, women, whatever. I'm not condoning any of that behavior, but if that's how you were, sort of taught and expected, and there was a certain expectation for decades, and now you're being asked to think in another way, like it takes practice. Everything takes practice.
Yes.
So conscious practice.
That is a very, very good point. Nothing, you're not going to change behavior of any sort. Doesn't matter. It took the pandemic to get me to stop biting my fingernails. So, like sometimes
I think probably a lot of people started biting their fingernails in the pandemic.
I was always just like, oh no, don't stick your fingers in your mouth, you gross person. What are you doing?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a total aside. But yeah, behavior is hard to change and people aren't going to change overnight, but it's good to get the message out there and the ideas out there, and over time, hopefully we'll see more and more improvement. But yeah. So with the She Rocks thing, is I was looking at the website. Is that centered around NAMM? Does that have something to do with NAMM? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it usually happens during the NAMM show. So we launched the first one in 2012 at the January NAMM show. This will be our 10th year, June 2nd.
Nice.
2022. And it's going to be the Thursday night before the NAMM show opens. So we do it in Anaheim right around the show. And it's really fun. We bring in, big name musicians, like I said, people from behind the scenes. And it's a very inspiring evening of musical performance, speeches from the honorees about their experiences and, just bringing all these people in the industry together for, I say we're like the classy event at the NAMM show. It's like a sit down dinner gala with awesome music and in a beautiful location. So it's really, it's a great energizing, experience. And it's open to the public. So if any of you guys watching want to be there, we sell tickets to the public at sherocksawards.com. So
there you go.
Coming up.
Yeah, and unless this was a holdover from last year, it looked like my friend Yvette was going to be there playing.
Yeah, no, that is new. We just announced we're going to be honoring Yvette Young, Dionne Warwick, Carmen Vandenberg from Bones UK, and a bunch of other people yet to be announced.
Yeah.
And Lizzie Hale, one of our co-hosts, will be there.
So. Oh, wow. That's
to be co-hosting. Yeah.
Sick. Yeah, Yvette's been on the show 3 times, I think. The first time we recorded in a van out behind the venue in here in Portland when the power was out at the venue.
Nice.
So she's a homie of the show and one of my absolute favorite guitar players ever to walk the planet. So
you should come to the awards. Come check it out.
I might be in Anaheim. I'm still trying to figure that out if I'm actually going to the show because I have another trip in June already booked. So I'm trying to figure out my travel plans, but there's a good chance. If I'm in Anaheim, I will 100% be there. So
awesome.
Yes. Sounds like a great event. It's so cool that you put that together and making a point, I think is just, it's more important than it may seem, I guess is probably the best way to put it.
It's like a ridiculous amount of work. I think people don't realize how much time goes into doing a project like that. But I think the thing that makes it worth it to me is when I hear people say, oh, that inspired me so much. Or I've literally had people say, I was going to stop. I was going to go in a different direction as an artist or in my career. And I went to one of your workshops or your events and I feel back on track. And that's a really nice thing to hear.
That's incredible. That is exactly why the feedback like that is what keeps you doing anything, honestly.
Yeah.
Sometimes
so true.
I love doing this podcast and I don't ever see myself stopping, but there have been times in the past where it was just wasn't really working and I'm like, ugh. And then I get an email. One I can't ever forget is I got an email from a guy in India and he's like, your show makes my 2-hour bike commute so much easier. And I'm like, okay, I just have to keep going.
That's awesome.
Just for that guy, 2-hour bike commute, forget it. That's crazy. So.
You're right. I do a podcast too. I do a She Rocks podcast. And it's it's time. It takes time. Research, get ready, do the interview, edit. Yeah.
You're busy.
A lot.
You are so busy.
I know.
Well, thank you for sitting down with me then. That was awesome.
Of course.
So before I get into my very classic questions, I do want to talk about the Positive Grid stuff just a little bit more because I feel like we talked a lot about you, which was the main point. But I know that you have amplifiers you want to talk about, so we should do that so nobody gets in trouble.
Oh no, we don't want to get in trouble. Well, I did want to share about this little Spark Mini, which when I hold it up, it looks big, but really, that's how big it is. It's a little guy.
It's tiny.
Yeah, tiny. It's about 6. It's like a tissue box size, right? Those little ones. But yeah, it's a really cool, fun product. It's battery powered, and not only is it a little amp, it's a little smart amp. It has an app that goes with it that has 10,000 tones and great features for you to learn music, backing tracks, it'll automatically create a backing track for you as you play. You can learn the chords. It'll just load up a YouTube video and it'll analyze the song and tell you what the chords are. So you can learn that in a snap.
Wow.
But it also just sounds really incredibly amazing. When I got my sample, I was like, oh, I hope these engineers are really telling the truth. They were all raving about how good it sounded, right? And you're like, okay, does it really sound that good? But it is pretty mind blowing that the sound can come out of something that's tiny. It's pretty awesome.
That's
So
cool.
I think it's, it's a perfect little practice amp. Put on your desk. It's like rechargeable USB power, and it has, a built-in interface so you can record with it. Has a line out and a headphone out, so you can record direct if you want, or put it through a speaker. You can load presets into it. So if you just don't want to use your app and you want to just take it wherever, busking or whatever, you can just load them in and go. So it's pretty awesome. It comes in white and black, and you can actually take the grill off and switch it out for some different grill options that we have, and that's really fun too. Right now we're in pre-order, and if you buy during pre-order, we're giving you like another grill, a red weave grill that looks really cool. So it's Spark Mini. It's available at positivegrid.com, and I think the thing I love the most about it is like a real amp. This is not like a crappy little it's something so I can just practice somewhere. No, this is like incredible audio. And you can use it as a Bluetooth speaker too. So
nice.
If you're not playing and you just want to run your songs through it, sounds pretty insane too.
That's awesome. That sounds super cool.
So yeah. That's our newest thing, just launched. So
that's awesome. Well, I think that could come in handy because I'm trying to get off the grid a little bit. What grid? Positive grid.
Get on the grid.
I'm gonna get on the grid and then go off the grid a little bit, hopefully this summer. So
perfect for off the grid.
Yes, that's what I need.
You can charge it in your car too. Like we're testing it out. Can you charge this with your car? Like if you have the right cable, you can recharge your battery of your amp.
Is that like USB?
Plugging it into your car.
Yeah.
Into your USB of your car.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into the classic questions. And
okay.
I know we just plugged the amp, but normally this is the point in the show where I give the guests an opportunity to plug anything they want to plug, or shout out anybody they want to shout out, or say hi to their grandma, or whatever they want to do. This is the point where I give you the floor to talk to a couple thousand people.
Oh, you mean I can talk about anything I want? I already talked about the She Rocks Awards and the gear. Wow, what else?
What else do you want to talk about? This is it.
Well, okay. One thing I have coming up that we didn't talk about that is really exciting is I'm also, a singer-songwriter myself, and I've been working on a project with a co-writer, my friend Jenna Payone, called Girl the Album. And it's a collection of songs to inspire and energize girls. It's pop songs. And we've brought in a whole bunch of other musicians and singers, and Nita Strauss plays on one song.
Whoa.
It's this really fantastic kind of, contribution a lot of people have made to this project, and it's coming out this year, finally. So we're about ready to release the first single, the one with Nita on it, in the next couple of weeks. And we'll be sharing lots and lots about Girl the Album coming up. And there's a website, girlthealbum.com, where you can find out more. So that's really, really exciting for me. And it's been a project that I've been working on for a few years. So
that's awesome.
I'm ready for it to be out in the world. So that's really fun.
I'm really glad I asked that question because I did not know about that.
Yeah. Girl, the album.
There you go. I like it. That's fantastic. So girlthealbum.com. That's perfect. That was a perfect
girlthealbum.com.
That was a perfect plug. All right. Classic questions. Here we go. And then we'll wrap up this main episode. First one. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
My favorite Boss pedal? I only have one. It's the tuner.
Hey, that's a very popular answer. That's a perfect.
It's good. You got to have the tuner when you're playing live.
I say this almost every time someone says this, but I refuse apparently to research this to confirm it, but I'm pretty sure that was the first tuner pedal was the Boss one.
I would guess so. I don't know.
I think it is.
But,
and now a tuner pedal is just essential for everybody that plays electric guitar live. What were we doing before? So there you go. The tuner. All right. Now this is the one that gets a little bit dicey. This is where people families break apart over this question.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's serious. So what is your favorite kind of pizza?
Oh, my favorite kind of pizza. I like almost every pizza.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really like the Hawaiian pizza
Oh
with the
no!
pineapple on it and the ham.
That's
So I'm probably
we gotta go.
buying right into your like polarizing. But like this is so dumb. There's this pizza made by like I think it's like Target's like in-house brand, and it has like prosciutto and
Mm-hmm.
arugula on it. It's really delicious. That's my favorite.
I'm a fan of prosciutto and arugula pizzas. I'm here to say.
Yeah,
I know it
there
sounds
you go.
kind of frou-frou and weird, but I am a big
It sounds like it, but it's delicious.
yeah.
And lots of garlic.
Oh, gotta have the garlic. You're from the you spent a lot of time in New York. Do you have any favorite New York pizzerias? That's a topic of great.
There's one pizza place near where I used to live in Brooklyn called Artichoke Pizza, and their slices were literally like the size of a whole pizza.
I've been there. I've been to Artichoke. Artichoke's awesome.
Yummy.
Yes.
And not only good pizza, but their drinks, like at the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Just go there, have a slice, have a drink. So good.
Artichoke's a good time.
Yeah.
It's a little different than your classic New York slice, but it's very good. Yeah.
Giant slice.
Giant. Yeah. Giant slices. All right. Well, Laura, thank you so much for coming on. This was a blast. And I have some questions for you over on Patreon that I think will be quite fun to get into. So,
okay.
Segue over there now. All right. For Laura, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right. There you have it. Good times, everybody. Good times. I hope that provided some useful insight for you. And I hope you enjoyed that chat. And if you would like to hear, some weirder subjects, and get just all kinds of bonus content. Well, not all kinds. The best kind. More episodes. If you would like to get more episodes beamed directly to your ears every week and help support this show, then yes, Patreon. Patreon.com/ToneMob, or there is the premium subscription option through Apple Podcasts if that is the thing you like. You just click, yes, I want to get these episodes. You'll see them pop up in your feed next to the regular episodes. If you just select one of those, scan your face or however you interact with Apple, and then same price. You will also get those episodes showing up right in your Apple device. So 2 options there for you if you want extra content. And thank you very much to everyone who supports the show in any way, shape, or form. As always, if you can't do that right now, I understand. I totally get it. But if you could share this with a friend. The show has grown a lot in the last couple months, and that is amazing to see. And I know that has to do with you telling people about it. And I know it might take some time. It could take quite a while for your friend to actually listen to it. But they will. They will at some point, and then they will thank you for it. Or they'll be mad at you because they're like, this guy's an idiot. But either way, you should be able to have a fun conversation about it at some point. So thank you, everybody. I'll talk to you very soon. See you on the interwebs. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.